technology. Only on the Purple Acorn Network.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast where we explore everything in the world of HR. We'll discuss trends, hot topics, and dive into the tools that help organizations improve how they attract, retain, and support their people, while also sharing how job seekers can land that perfect role during this tumultuous time. So grab your coffee and let's get into it. This is From the Desk with me, Jada Montemarano, where we bring the hottest HR news from the desk right to you. And today we are thrilled to have on Keirsten Greggs. She is not only the founder of Trap Recruiter, she has over 20 years of experience in the recruitment world, recognized as a top recruitment influencer to follow in 2024, and winning the 2023 HR Unite TA Trailblazer Award. Keirsten has dedicated herself to transforming the hiring process by helping companies retain top talent while supporting underrepresented groups in the hiring process. Keirsten further uses her knowledge to teach others during the Trap Chat, at workshops, training sessions, and more. So in this conversation today, we're going to explore Keirsten's mission, her innovative approach to recruitment, and how the impact she's making for businesses and candidates. So welcome, Keirsten. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So excited. So we kind of talked a little bit about your intro there. You have an impressive career in recruitment. So can you tell us just a little bit about what drew you to this role over the years and what made you kind of stick with it?
Oh, wow. Well, like most folks who started in recruiting, it happened by accident in the year 2000. I want to say that. It was just about the dot-com boom. The world did not end. And I was hired by a staffing company, so a third-party recruiting firm, off of Monster. Yeah, I feel extremely experienced.
Well, that's what we talk about on this show when social media was a negative. When I was going into college, you had to have a different name on Facebook. You couldn't have a social media presence, and now it's about it. So I understand you with the way things are changing there.
Absolutely.
So you were talking about what got you into it. So you were saying you applied on Monster, things were a little bit different, and then you loved it?
I did. We supported ISPs. We supported defense contractors because I am based here in the DC metro area. And one day, one of our clients wanted an in-house recruiting team. He did not have one, and they were a small 80 defense contractor. 4 of us went there, and the rest is history. I spent most of my career in defense and intel, transitioned a few times from layoffs, and ran up the ranks. You know, I started as obviously a full life cycle recruiter. I did sourcing, but I had an opportunity to do different things within talent acquisition. And I was uniquely positioned at not only excellent enterprise companies that had resources and that had additional opportunities for me, that I was able to do other things and learn other parts of TA. And we were part of like crafting, you know, what it is today, you know, separating a sourcer from a recruiter, separating a recruiter from someone in ops, separating talent attraction. All of those things were just starting to happen. And, you know, I was there for all those iterations. But in 2016, I got laid off for what I decided was the last time. And I started Trap Recruiter. I always had it in my mind, it's like, I don't want to be a staffing company, because I do enjoy that other side of it. So I enjoy ops. I enjoy compliance. I enjoy storytelling. I enjoy data analytics. I enjoy talent attraction. All the things that people don't like, I like. You know, process optimization, picking systems, you know, doing training, helping recruiters be better TA folks, talking to the business about why we should value recruiters even more. And yeah, I love it. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to do, because I feel like this has been my only career, if we're going to be honest.
Well, when you love it so much and you're clearly good at it, you might as well stick with it. And I do want to get into your company, but I want to touch on something you said earlier, that you kind of started in the impetus of a lot of the different kind of HR talent recruiting spaces, especially like you mentioned, You were there at the start of the internet. How did people apply to jobs before the internet? I worked in TV. I wasn't around for that, but we used to have to send our tapes, like physical copies of us on camera, to studios. So clearly it's so different. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. You went through kind of the dot-com boom of how recruitment was done, and now we're in this AI boom. So you're seeing two kind of major transformations in technology. What have you seen over the years? What are your thoughts? I know this is a broad question, but I feel like you probably have some nuggets that you've thought about over the years.
So yes, I come from a time where we were making calls, like literally, like trying to find folks' email addresses. You didn't need email. A lot of people did not want to be contacted via email because some people only had work email addresses and they didn't want you sending them a message to their work email account. Or, we would do these things where, depending if you were on the account management side of time or you were on the recruiter side, where you're trying to figure out people's email addresses because one person at that company and you try different iterations of it to get in touch with them. But we were faxing, we were crossing out contact information when I worked at the staffing company, making phone calls, putting ads in the paper. And can I just tell you, I know you worked in media, and advertising, like even newspaper ads, are expensive. Like we think about what it costs to now, post a job on Indeed or, job boards that scrape for free, for all intents and purposes. And no, we were shelling out major money. Like we were having to make decisions about what our spend was going to be and what jobs we were going to prioritize because we only had a budget of X amount of dollars and we had to make that last until, this time. And then, we started coming up with these hot jobs lists. What was this thing? And those were the things that were featured on your website. A lot of people did not want to apply that way. People were still doing paper applications. There was a lot of follow-up, again, via the phone. You call somebody now, like even me, my phone is on silent 24/7.
I don't answer a number I don't know.
If my phone were to ring, I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that? And now we spend, most of our time like this, interacting via video call. I never met anyone until they came in for an interview into an office. I sat them down. I went over a benefits overview. I gave them an overview of the job. I walked them to the hiring manager. I waited for them to come back. All of those things were being done. And, things are so much different now. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. I can't imagine what it would be like if I had started recruiting at a time where we had the abundance of tools that we have now. I don't think that I don't think I still would have been a recruiter. No.
Everything you said just brought up so many questions, so I'm going to try to field through them. So I guess the first thing I would ask is, what is it like now for recruiters to become recruiters? You're saying it is vastly different. You may not even wanting to do it anymore. And it's a lot of technology now, right? Recruiters are having to learn a lot of technology. So I guess maybe what are the main differences you're seeing now in the recruiting world that are just totally new and different?
You asked me two different questions and I have two different perspectives. I want to start with recruiters have to learn technology because I don't think that's necessarily true. Meaning, yes, they have to learn how a certain, say, CRM or applicant tracking system functions, how it's customized to meet their needs, what, for lack of a better term, bells and whistles it has. But the same way that applicants and know how to apply for a job on a website, like you don't have to spend time saying, look, put in your email address, log in, hit this, but like you don't have to do that. People know how to apply for a job online. Recruiters know how to use. I mean, they're people. They grew up with the with the internet. They grew up with technology. They teach us how to do things. There's a running joke, especially for not for my generation. I'm X, so boomers. They're like, I had to teach you how to how to change a Word document into a PDF, like all those jokes and things like that, because people didn't have that, like that technology was new. So I was learning along with, as it was coming out, it was cutting edge for me. I was learning. The stuff that we have now is not cutting edge. You know, like they already know how to use these tools because they use them in other capacities. I was surprised as some of my younger cousins, even, and even my nieces and nephews, when they were in middle school and high school, like they were doing schoolwork. They were making PowerPoint presentations and using Adobe Studio. And I'm like, what? Like, we didn't do that when I was like, we took typing class on a word processor. Oh my God. I'm so from the 1900s. Like, this is terrible.
The fact that people are calling it the late 1900s also makes me upset.
Oh my God. Yes. So that's to answer your first question. And I say that I wouldn't be a recruiter because it wouldn't be exciting and I wouldn't have developed the same muscles. So I developed relationship building muscles. I developed creative muscles that helped me to, you know, be more authentic, to tell, you know, to talk to people. Like I wasn't able to create a dynamic prompt and just move along. Like I had to manually do things and it felt like you were, you know, doing real work because you had to remind yourself, yes, I need to customize this email for this person. I need to change this name. Now, by the way, it's awesome that we don't have to do that anymore. It's so much more efficient. But I feel like I would be, and this is no disrespect, I feel like I would have become lazy in terms of my high touch approach to things. I would not have been. I would have let, you know, for communications especially, I would have just let the system do it. For, you know, answering questions, you know, I'm not picking up the phone. I'm not scheduling a time to talk to you outside of the, you know, that 1 or 2 meetings that we were already supposed to have. I think I would have relied a lot more on technology, and that's fine. Generationally, that works for some job seekers. That works for some folks who are looking to move into new roles. But for the workforce that was here as these things were happening, that doesn't always work for them.
And that kind of segues me into back to talking about Trap, the company you created. So what are some of these values maybe or skills that you are taking from kind of maybe the older way of doing it and now meshing that with the new way of doing it at your company?
So trust, relationship building, accountability, and a proactive approach. And let me be clear, I love AI. I just did an ebook with Fama about AI for, you know, for recruiters. I did a whole series this summer with one of my colleagues, Tia, talking about AI tools for job seekers, where we reviewed a different tool every week and, you know, gave the pros and cons and, you know, what it's used for in the process, what else it could be partnered with, and all those things. I love the AI technology. Don't get me wrong. So I would definitely continue to learn new things. Like that's where I'm at right now, is learning and staying ahead of the curve. And I think that's what Trap is, because I do want to connect job seekers to employers who are looking for them. You know, I always say I bridge the gap. And I do. And I did that inside of organizations when I worked in corporate. That was the differentiator for me, especially when I started dealing with applicant tracking systems, picking tools for us, interfacing with other stakeholders who were going to be a part of the hiring process, whether it be compensation, your HR business partner, your hiring manager, your team. Like I could speak recruiting and bring it back to our team. And one of the things that helped was, especially when we were looking for new systems. And I always said, like, we need to talk to recruiters about what they actually need. And as someone who would do the process, as someone who, you know, would have to get through the life cycle, I'm like, recruiters don't need this step. They don't do that. This is how they do it. And we were able to transform from a how to to a why type of mindset, especially when it came to compliance, because no one wants to see your auditor coming. When I got to send you a spreadsheet with your 500 errors for the quarter, and you have to look through it and go back and correct those things, pull paperwork, get everything together. Like, you want to know, like, what is the purpose of this? Why am I doing this? But when I can show you how, when you improve by X percentage, what this meant for your time to fill, what this meant for your bonus, what this meant in terms of like getting you, to understand why you're doing something, that went a long way.
And you mentioned talking about the trust, the accountability in recruiting. And we talk about this employee recruitment life cycle. So for those who may not know, can you explain what that is and how you work on that with your trust and accountability and everything you're doing at TRAP?
When you say employee recruitment life cycle, what do you mean by that? Like the hiring life cycle?
Yes.
I'm not sure what the question. Well, I'm not sure what the question is.
Just to explain what that means and how you work on that at TRAP.
Okay, so the recruitment process is something that I have likened to the game, and here comes my 1900s again, Chutes and Ladders. Okay, if anyone is familiar with that childhood board game, yes, you have a start, and when you roll well and you get to go up, you might get to go all the way to the top, but then the next roll you might hit a chute and come back down a little bit. That's kind of like how the recruiting process is. So I work to, like I said, make things more efficient, remove waste. Again, I came from a defense contracting background. We had a great deal of compliance, but also a great deal of what was coined self-imposed governance, making up rules and making up these roadblocks for no other reason than you can. And you want someone else to check this work for no reason, because again, now you have a system that can do these things for you. Creating offer letters outside of a system is foreign now, but you still have some organizations that want to do that, and it doesn't make sense. It makes errors. Distance creates errors. So the further you are from where you started to where you're trying to go, and again, you keep adding in more steps and more steps and more steps, you're going to create more errors. So I remove those things from the process as much as I can.
Gotcha. And now moving on into something else that you focus on in helping underrepresented groups in the recruitment process. So what are some of the barriers they face, and how are you hoping to help that through TRAP?
Bias is a huge barrier. It comes in many different forms. I know we like to use the term unconscious bias, because I think we see bias as like this bad, dirty word, but it's not always. Everyone has biases. Everyone comes with a set of values, a set of the way they experience the world and how they are going to interact with it. The thing is to recognize that, and to recognize when you're imposing your will on someone else. And like I said, when it matters and when it doesn't. And we don't want to make decisions about things because there's like a cultural difference. I like to use eye contact as a big one, because I think that one's universal. There's a huge, there's some cultures that don't make eye contact, but, Americans are like, you need to look me in my eye. You need to be focused on me, and like someone taking notes during a meeting, especially again, we're on camera. Everybody doesn't feel comfortable like staring at a camera, or they don't know where to look, So, they might be like taking notes or looking somewhere else. They're like, oh, they weren't paying attention. They weren't listening. They weren't watching. And you have to give those things, or during certain religious holiday seasons, this person can't do an interview during this time of the day. Why? They can't, like, they're not available. Let's move on. And again, getting hiring teams, getting stakeholders to realize that these are things that are not going to cause us to lose sleep at night. We talk about job descriptions being inclusive. We talk about removing, gendered language. I'm a person and I am very aware of it. I say, hey guys, all the time. Everything is guys. And I catch myself saying, I'm trying to break myself. out of that. But I've also learned that a lot of people don't even catch, like, don't even hear it, or they don't even catch it. They are used to me talking that way, or they're used to hearing that word, and they also know that I'm not intending to offend. But if someone were to be offended and someone were to write a note, or for quote unquote turn me into whoever, I don't really know who they would turn me into, but say, oh, Keirsten used gendered language, I would have to take accountability for that and say, yeah, I did, and then explain why I didn't apologize, or why I didn't correct myself. Especially, again, pronouns. I could be looking at, like, I will literally practice, over and over again, like, what is this person's pronouns if they're not what, again, I thought they were going to be, and practice making sure I say what their pronoun is, so that I don't inject make them uncomfortable, and inject any bias into the situation.
And the show is wrapping up a little bit
Oh, wow.
here. So I always like to end it on giving people advice, job seekers advice to land that role. Because we were talking about underrepresented groups, maybe let's make it there a little bit different to end the segment. So for anyone who would be an underrepresented group, what do you recommend they do when they're going into a job process, looking for the right role, what they should be looking for that should be hopefully beneficial, but you also mentioned some things that could make people uncomfortable during the interview process. So what would you give as a tip to them?
Absolutely go where you're wanted. Like, don't force yourself into a situation, or don't try to force yourself into a situation that does not feel good to you, that does not feel safe, that does not feel inclusive. There are plenty of organizations out here that are willing to, and are open to, and want to be equitable, and want to be inclusive. And those are the places you should be targeting, not the ones that, have the most, again, bells and whistles, or, everyone else is applying to.
And my quick question there, are there any signs or language when you meet with someone, job posting on the website, to know which companies fall in which way?
There's a whole, okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a whole lot of red flags that exist just in the job description. So you're going to be looking for things like gendered language, like inflexibility. You're going to be looking for vagueness. Um, you're going to be, honestly, at this point, having to determine if the job is real or not, because we have a lot of job postings that aren't real job postings. They're either, again, because the internet is so vast, and because there's so many people that have accessibility to, companies' job boards and companies' job descriptions, they might be taking those things and then coming to you and, pretty much trying to defraud you. So if they're asking you for money to apply for the job, if they're asking you to send your address, to send you a computer before you've even interviewed, and those type of things, like, pay attention to fraud too. Like, don't do that. That's a huge red flag.
There is so much out there and so much more we could get into, but this is the end of our show today. Keirsten, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with everyone today. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me, Jada.
Awesome. And thank you all so much for everybody else watching. You could catch us every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're hungry for other Purple Acorn shows, you can head to purpleacornnetwork.com and Purple Acorn on LinkedIn. We'll see you next time on From the Desk with me, Jada Montemarano.